Thank the comments and questions by my colleagues, and I just think this is a very straightforward measure, especially for a state that claimed they never participated in slavery. And all this does is remove the language that states one has to serve or work involuntarily and forced labor. And it would seem to be a common sense measure, again, for a state that says we didn't actively participate in slavery, but you have in our Constitution right now seeing one can, simply because of being incarcerated, be forced into labor. This bill does not remove the option of someone deciding whether they work or not. It removes the forced labor that's forced upon someone, which is clearly slavery when someone is forced to work. So all this does is remove that language that should have never been there. We claim to have eliminated slavery in 1865, but here we are 100, almost 60 years later, and we still have language in our Constitution that clearly speaks to slavery. So I think it's a common sense measure, and I appreciate the author for her work and the coalition in support of this measure. Would you like to close?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank my colleagues for the questions and for the debate. I first want to express gratitude to Samuel Brown and Jamelia Land for working with me on this. As Mr. Brown mentioned, he did most of this work while he was incarcerated and talked, in fact, about the importance of being able to participate in programs while incarcerated. I could not have shared any more eloquently than Mr. Brown or Mr. Logson about why this is important. And I also want to express gratitude to all of the brothers and the sisters who found their way today here to share their voices in support of the measure. What this does is very simple. There's no nuance. It is so clear. It would simply say that slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited. That is what the state constitution would say if this is passed by the legislature and if it is passed by the voters. Slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited. That is what the change would look like. It is silent on all of these other philosophical debates that we should and will continue to have about how CDCR operates. And hopefully we are able to have discussions about what work really means for folks who are incarcerated. You know, abuses that happen, retaliation that happens, not having enough work that happens, being put in really dangerous situations or predicaments where it's not sometimes so much about doing the work, but how you are surviving. I think there are some romantic and fantastical ideas about what it is like on the inside, and then I think there's the reality. And for folks who've never been on the inside, we will never have a true understanding of what that reality is. And those are debates that we should have, but for another time. Because this bill simply would say in the Constitution that slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited. It is silent on all of those other things. And those are where we can come in and lend expertise and stories and experiences and questions and really pry and prod into what happens in our prison system to find ways that make it work. But in the meantime and in between time, as my mother would say, this would simply eliminate the exception that involuntary servitude and slavery are okay for the punishment of a crime. And with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this measure? So moved. It's been moved by Senator Skinner. We have a due pass as adopted to the Committee on Elections. Council, please call the roll.
ACA3, Bradford.
Aye.
Bradford, aye. Chobogue.
Aye.
Chobogue, aye. Comlager.
Aye.
Comlager, aye. Skinner. Aye. Skinner, aye. Wiener.
The measure has 4 votes. We'll leave the roll open for our absent member. Congratulations, Senator Comlager. All right, now we're waiting for authors.